Okay, we're preparing. We're going live. Welcome, everybody. I am Brenda B. Bailey, and we are in the weekly Theta Healing Power Hour where I get to interview amazing people because I'm in the know. I know really cool people, and they get to and they say yes to me, which makes me so happy. And we're going to learn something great. We're going to get some great tips. And then at the end, we're going to do a little work on whatever gets brought up during this conversation. So let me go ahead and get my notes here. And let me tell you about who I have here. If the fear of negotiating is costing you more than you'd like to admit, then you're really in for a transformation. And I know this to be true because I've known Corine Wafford, who is my featured guest today, for many years. And this is her jam. This is what she knows. So she's known as America's negotiation expert. She is the founder and chief experiential officer at Corine Wafford International LLC, a training and developmental consultancy providing high performance training and speaking services on Be the Difference leadership and negotiation. So for over 30 years, Corine has taught corporate professionals and women entrepreneurs how to stop self-sabotage when they negotiate so they can achieve their goals, make more money, and create a meaningful difference in the world. She is a 3-time international best-selling co-author on business strategy and negotiation. She is certified master facilitator, 2-time best-selling co-author on gratitude, and is the recipient of the Entrepreneurial Spirit Award in the mentor category from the National Association of Women Business Owners. So Corine is here to share her propriety Negotiate with Success framework with us, along with the highlights from her negotiation research and the energetic principles, mindsets, and skill set she provides her clients to help them succeed. So we've known each other for a long time. And I know that if she's not serving her clients, she's spending time with her big Italian family, and not as much right now, but she does a lot, or advocating for a great cause in the community. So welcome, Corine. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Brenda. I'm happy to be here.
I mean, that's pretty much our power hour is over with all her accolades. We're done. Like, there you go. No, I'm just kidding. So I'm going to just start off with our first question here. So tell us a little bit about your background, Corine, even though we've gotten a little bit, but it'll be so much better from the horse's mouth, and how you developed your expertise in negotiation.
Sure. Well, I have to, start off with a true confession, Brenda. I'm a recovering overgiver. And I knew when it had to stop. Also, I knew when my overgiving nature was really costing me thousands and thousands of dollars. I've been a key community contributor, and I'm not saying that you stop giving for that, because I will always do that. But the line that crosses when it starts impacting your income really occurred to me the first time when I was 29 years old. I was working for a global consulting company. I had left IBM, and we were in Nashville in a conference room. There were 12 facilitators, and we were preparing for a sales management training program for Sony the very next day, when the director comes in and says, "Hey, we have a problem, because the executives at Sony from France want their program in French tomorrow. Do we have any takers?" Well, I mean, you could just imagine, Brenda. I mean, you could have heard a pin drop, but all I could hear was my heart beating like 1,000 beats a minute, and the chatter going on in my head, which happens when we try to figure something out. And I was just thinking, whatever you do, Corine, do not raise your hand. Good Lord, this is way too high profile of a situation. Well, and I thought, they don't even know. Nobody here knows I even speak French, right? And then I thought, well, wait now, what if they know I speak French? Do they, and then there it is. I mean, it was lost between my head and my heart. I was saying no one way and yes the other. My hand goes up and I say, sure, I can help. So here she comes over. She's very excited, and she's sharing the leader's guide with me, when over here to my right, I hear laughter from three of the facilitators saying, you know, rookie, she probably doesn't even know she could have gotten paid more for that. Well, I couldn't think about that. So I'm, preparing. And then the 1-2 punch comes pretty quickly when they start talking about their per diems. And I realize that I'm giving the same workshop to the same level of audience, the same content, and they're making double what I'm making, and I'm doing it in French. So I run upstairs and I realize that, two things need to happen. And this is, I need to make a decision. First, I'm going to knock it out of the park the next day. Second of all, I'm going to find out about that per diem thing and negotiate up if I need to. And, as it turned out, and I can tell you how it did turn out, because the negotiation took sort of a dog leg to the right. And if you want, I can come back and revisit that at the end. But I just will tell you that it was
a cliffhanger, guys. Stay tuned.
It was like a gender equity thing. And I was like, wait now, in 2018, the World Economic Forum came out and stated that the United States would not achieve gender equity for 208 years. And I thought, this is cause for me to write Melinda Gates, which I have done, and said, hey, this is something we can move the needle on quicker. The women today, even if you're an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. No one can tell me what my glass ceiling is. I create what I want, and I don't get it because I'm worth it. I get it because I ask for it and I negotiate for it. So that's sort of in a nutshell. I come from this big Italian family, and we used to have family meetings, and I was always the peacemaker. And I was like, geez, I don't want to go to another family meeting, but I learned a lot about negotiation there. And sometimes it was, things I take, my dad used to say, if you're going to do me wrong, you better not ever need me again. And I would say, wait now, is that a threat, or is, and he's not a threat, it's just a warning, but you're too nice. He used to tell me, you're going to get taken advantage of. And I am a very nice person. And, I think that that's something that women need to know. It's a myth to think we have to be a barracuda to be an effective negotiator. And it's just a skill. And it happens to be one of my, it's my honor to share this skill and to others, so that to empower them to move forward.
What makes me laugh when you say that, because it makes me think about when I went to go work, because I had a 7-figure sales company, right? And when I was contracting with a manufacturer out in Los Angeles, they brought me in for my first show to work for them. And so I'm with all these Californians, right? And immediately I do better than all of them. Wow. And their answer was, well, it's because she's from Texas and she's nice. Right. So it's like, don't underestimate being nice, and don't, I think that's the thing, that people all of a sudden say yes, and they don't realize that they are, because they weren't strong armed. And sales is the same way. And negotiation and sales go so hand in hand. If you're good at sales, you can be good at negotiation. If you're good at negotiation, you can be good at sales. And there's such valuable, in working with Corine and understanding negotiation, I think it makes a person a better closer in so many areas, right? In so many areas. And that's the thing. It's like, and I wanted to warn you, you're talking to an Italian and a Hispanic, and we're both going to be using our hands. All right. I'm laughing because I think Corine's probably the first guest that I've had that uses her hands as much as I do. So listen to what we're saying and watch our faces. Don't pay attention to our hands. I'm laughing, I was like, love it.
It's true.
So, and then this just goes hand in hand. So what are some of the areas that you help your clients negotiate?
Well, we talk about sales negotiation. We talk about salary negotiation. And we also talk about family harmony, because, the stakes are sometimes higher when it's family, because you You're very close to these people, but sometimes a difference has to be resolved, and people have to know that you have to be able to create value for everyone, and which is really the heart of negotiation. And, I really believe that when we become better negotiators, we become stronger business leaders. And we can take that leadership, it dovetails into the home. And so I had to create the family harmony, because I was giving too many training programs where someone in the back would say, can you help me get my son out of the basement? Or, how about, what happens when we have that challenge with, the
Well, Corinne, I think also too, like in caring for our elderly parents,
yes, that's
you have to be able to negotiate with your family. Like when I know you're thinking of examples, but I think that that's a prime one, because both of us are of that age, right? Like
right.
of where you're looking at that and understanding how you can. And I've seen disharmony in so many families as a result
Yeah.
of that situation.
And that just happened with one of my clients. I helped her get her mother out of home for the elderly during COVID, when everything was
Right.
on lockdown, and she was like, guess what, not negotiable, I'm getting my mother out of there. Like, I know she's not going to do well without seeing us, and this has to happen. So they came up with a lot of different alternatives, in ways in which everyone stayed safe, but that she got what she wanted, and she knew she was able to be there for her mother. But yeah, I think to women in particular, you know, will go to someone for assistance with negotiation. And you do have to have sort of a little bit of a posse. You have to have someone who's going to be straight with you and say, hey, this is what happened at work. What am I missing? Or you maybe, want someone that's going to be a mirror for you and say, this is how I'm handling the curfew problem with my son. And if you were my son, like, how would this land for you? Or, and then someone who's just going to be able to give you some guidance. So you kind of have to have a support group. And I know that, I practice negotiating with men and women, because it's the world we live in. And also, I tend to be very animated. The best approach is just sort of an assertive, sort of confident approach, but not cocky. And, just sort of breathe. Remember to breathe through it. But I think a lot of women, in particular, have challenges with the ask. And I know we'll talk more about that. But, I would just encourage people to step out of their comfort zone and not only ask, but ask for more, because it's my experience, I'm an overgiver, but people in my circle come to me and they tend to be as well. Women want to do more. And if you are doing that, you can sort of factor that in when you ask for more. I mean, working with salary negotiations, I do these complimentary CEO chats. And if any of you would like to speak with me, you're welcome to. You would just go to calendly.com/Corine-1. Well, anyway, I'm in an airport, and I get this referral from this woman. She says, hey, Corine, I was just wondering, I'm in an interview tomorrow, and it's for a producer role in New York, but I want you to help me get the executive producer role. Okay, go. And so I said, okay, listen. So I gave her some negotiation advice. And here's the thing. When it's great to ask for more, but you don't want to appear greedy, right? So she was going in for an interview to be a producer. She had to be an exceptional candidate as a producer. And then it's just like handling indifference in a sales situation. They don't have a perceived need for that, your product price, or what you're offering, because they want this. So what I told her to do was to really find out what was involved with the executive producer role, and then reverse those things out and say, hey, are you having any concerns in these areas? In this area, do you want to do something about it? And then proceed to share with them her her expertise and what she could do, and then tell her, and by the way, I'm ready to step into that role and serve your organization in that way right now if you're interested. And she was able to get the executive producer role. I mean, we did that in 20 minutes in an airport. And, just sort of talk through it. So I think if you have an advisor, and I'm not saying I have to be your advisor, maybe you have a posse of friends that you want to connect with, but if you have an expert on your side, it can only help you, whether you're selling your business, whether you want to be treated better at work and increase your salary, or if you really want to take care of something sensitive at home when the stakes are even higher because you have really close relationships there and you don't want to lose them. It helps to have this skill.
And when you're talking, Corine, the deal is that I hope that light bulbs are going on in all the areas that we negotiate in. I
Yes.
don't think that people sometimes have that awareness, and then why things haven't gone your way, right? Like, or why you haven't gotten the outcome that you've wanted. And I feel like also too, people approach too many things personally. I mean, it's all personal in negotiation, but the deal is that you still have to be that objectivity, and you have to see it from the other person's side so that you can appeal to them. Like what this story that Corine was just sharing, this is what this woman did. Like, if I were them, what would be my concerns? And that's such an important, here, like, I don't know, like, here's a tip, write it down, note to self, that kind of thing, which is really juicy and good. So what did you discover in your research on negotiation that you feel like would help everybody today?
Well, I interviewed 500 men, 500 women. I was involved with something called the Leadership Lab here in San Antonio. I was on the board for that organization, and I did some training with them. And they bring in 100 plus of some of the best in the companies in town, and they have a year-long program. So I thought, they want me to speak on negotiation.
Town being our little city of San Antonio, but go on.
Hey, San Antonio. Trust me,
in the U.S., but in our town, I was just laughing because she's not pulling from a little place, guys. She's pulling from a pretty big pool. So they've got to be really good, high, people. So I want to make sure that you understand that she's not pulling from a little pool. She's pulling from a really big, very qualified pool here.
Well, I pulled from them, but I also pulled from women entrepreneurs globally. I worked with moms, leaders in our community, and women entrepreneurs that I was working with actually globally. I interviewed them, and what I found was most interesting. 91%, just over 91% of the respondents found negotiation to be scary. Also, the number one reason men felt that their negotiations failed was because they failed to develop the relationship first. And the number one reason women felt that their negotiations failed was because they didn't ask specifically for what they wanted. So I find this very just illuminating. Even in some research, when you talk about why are the fact that women are leaving so much money on the table, there's so many stats on this, but one of the reasons I think is because they're not asking for what they want, and yes, there is a cost to negotiating, and that's been documented in research. You could be perceived negatively if you ask, but I think a big part of it is, women tend to feel like they have to have 100%, they have to be 100% ready before they move in or ask for anything or create the best outcome for everyone. So they're just not ready. Have you heard that? And then, how many of you out there are getting ready to get ready? I know I was guilty of that. And I think that's part of it. Whereas men will go in quicker. And, that ties back to all sorts of research on, studies where men have gotten, coming out of graduate school or their last semester of graduate school, getting like top jobs. And, the women going to the professors and saying, why wasn't I recommended for that, internship or whatever? And the professor saying, hey, you didn't ask. Or stats that say, if you're leaving college right now and you don't negotiate your first job, you're going to lose on average $7,000 that first year. And over a period of 45 years, you're going to lose between $650,000 and $1 million. Let's go. How about negotiating something? And it can be anything, it could be your review to 90 days from over a year. Maybe you don't want to wait a year. And then at that 90-day review, you can really kind of get a sense of the company and know where you want to go, and maybe, add value in some way, and in which case you might be able to increase your income. There's all sorts of things without being like the greedy person that is asking for more money now.
And I think it's also even just like what you're saying, Corine, like in going, because again, I mean, we're both entrepreneurs, 28
Yes.
years here, over 30 years.
Yeah.
We've learned a few things, just saying, we're still in business, right? So, the big thing is, right, that I think is also important too. So if you work in corporate America, if you're looking at a review, it's also, saying, I want this, and then what do I need to do, right? And then closing them. If I do this, then I can get that, within this amount of time. And it's understanding that when you work with somebody like Corine and you understand negotiation and you know the script, or the intention, because I think a lot of it's intention as well, like understanding like what you want the outcome to be. And again, first and foremost, we want it to be, what I say win-win. What have you been saying, Corine? You've been saying best outcome for everyone, or
creating value for mutual gain, but it is a win for all parties involved. And you bring up a good point, because the very first step, I have a 3-step process in my framework for negotiation. It's the acronym UPS. So it's understand, negotiation principles, prepare a negotiation plan, and seal the deal and celebrate. So it's understand, prepare, and seal the deal. Well, the first part of understanding is to understand what you want to make that decision. Like you said, be intentional, right? Being intentional is it's a success accelerator across the board for entrepreneurs. Come on.
In every area.
But in negotiation, it specifically has to do with what we call, a position and an interest, the what and the why. So the what would be, your position. If you're a realtor and your client says, hey, here's what I want. I want a driveway around the back of my home. And when she asks why, they say, well, because I want to feel more secure. I want my home to be in a secure area. Well, because she knows the why, now she knows that I can offer so many more opportunities for selections for this client by getting them into a gated community versus racking my brain to find out which homes have that garage that drives around back. And so the what and the why becomes really important. And when you're in negotiation, you have to understand what the difference is between what you want and why and what they want and why. And then let's just negotiate the difference. In Germany and in the United States, we're very linear in our negotiation. So we'll take one thing at a time and set it aside, and then that's good and good, right? Whereas the French, they'll come, nothing's set until the deal is signed. So they'll go back and something that you thought was already set, they'll come back, it's all negotiable again. Whereas we're more linear in our approach here in the United States, which makes it nice and clean, right? I'm not an advocate of trying to mess things up. Let's just make it really clear, and understanding the what and the why helps you know that, when you're dealing with objections that come up, then you might have to go back to this, right? So when they say, we're not signing a 5-year contract with you, what they may be saying is that the opt-out opt-out option in the contract is unclear for them. So if you didn't know that, you would think, oh, geez, 5-year contract, it's out for them. Now what are we going to do? Versus just know that if you would have asked the question, why is that the case? Then you would have known that you just need to clarify the opt-out portion of your contract. So that's the very first part. And then in terms of preparing, I'll just share like one key part in each one of these, the framework, not to confuse your audience. So very first part in understanding, I like to talk about the negotiator's dilemma, because that's when these interests are pulling you together, but differences are pulling you apart. And more often than not, when I work with women, it's what's going on in their head. It's these limiting beliefs that you're so exceptional at helping people move through. You know, it's when your intuition says yes, but your logic says, I'm not ready. That's just one example of doubt and anxiety and, you know, procrastination that occurs. But anyway, when you're preparing, a lot of these things help move you through it, because you're actually getting a plan in place, right? So the negotiator's dilemma is, that's what that is. That's what that gut check is whenever you go to negotiate, or you go like, I'm not doing this. It's not a skill I know how to do. But anyway, so I think, you know, just acknowledging that, and then being intentional about what you want to do, and then knowing the next step will help you move through it, and not feeling like it has to be perfect first.
Well, and you know, Corine, you brought up a really good point that I think is something, you know, it's like they don't want a 5-year contract. Well, I think most women would just be like, okay, they don't want me. No, no, no. They
Yeah.
need to, you know, it's like anything, they need more information to say yes, right? So
Yeah.
they, you know, and it's asking about that instead of just going, oh, they don't want to work with me at all. No, that's not what they said. And that's not what they meant. And if you, again, can approach it detached and objective, and I'm not saying like a robot or whatever, but so
Right.
that you can hear without projecting, right? So that we can understand what they're saying without reading between the lines, like truly be literal in what they're saying. And so that we
Yes.
can understand, again, what needs to be, you know, tweaked, what needs to be negotiated, what needs to be like, you know, a bally back and forth or a riffing to
Yeah.
understand how that needs to be stated. So again, everybody's happy with the outcome. Everybody feels comfortable. Everybody wants to say yes.
Yeah.
And it just, you know, that those are the kind of things. So communication is, you know, and getting clarification. Again, it's
Mhm.
like overcoming an objection, something again similar in sales, but for different reasons and in different way. But we can't, you know, and it's understanding. You know, it's like I talk to some people sometimes, and it's like, you know, everybody always wants to do it the inexpensive way, but I've talked to them. I know who they are. Possibly they've had the intro session, so I understand how better I can serve them.
Right.
And it's like, you know, well, I think I just want to do, I want to commit to the 3-month program. And it's like, really think you need the 6th. And let me tell you why. So it's understanding, like, I'm not doing it for the money. Again, I
Mhm.
want to make money, right? Like, so I love the saying, money's not the most important thing, but it touches everything that is. So we want to
Mhm.
make money,
Yeah.
but we want people to understand that we're coming from that place of service and going, I get that this is what you're saying, and I understand why you're saying it. And let
Mhm.
me explain to you why you want to do more, or why I'm putting it this away, or why I'm negotiating this, because I have your best interest at heart. And that
Mhm.
comes from building relationships. So can people trust that they have my best interest at heart? Is this, you know, because Karina and I are from Texas, right? So when we're looking at negotiation, we're kind of looking at it like when we're talking linear, well, maybe we don't do it, but it's a known, like you do it on a handshake and then you write it down, right? Like, and then you get it in print, but you decide on it, you shake on it, and you sign on it then.
Mhm.
But it's a part of that negotiation. It's a part of
Yeah.
that understanding and getting to it. So, you know, I think that that's so true. And, you know, when we talk about where we're from, like, so Corine, how do you feel like growing up in a big Italian family, right? How that what did you learn from that? What are some tips?
Um, well, I think the idea of speaking up, I mean, sometimes you have to speak up to be heard if there's a lot of people. And then if you're and then also people feel very strongly about things. So I learned from a very strong young age that people were putting their stake in the ground for something they believed in. And so values and were very important. And putting the stake in the ground, like um, and if you disagreed with something, you would have to learn how to respectfully reserve the right to disagree with someone and hold your ground about it, and then respectfully reserve the right to disagree again, and then let them know why. But I was always very nice, and my family would always say, oh, she's going to get taken advantage of. And I would always say, my eyes are wide open, people, do not worry about me. Like, I want to do this, and if there's a concern, I can handle it. And so I just feel like the listening piece is also very, very important, as is emotional intelligence. And those things I really did learn from my family. As an empath myself, I'm highly in tune to how people are impacted by words and actions. Sometimes I can enter a room and just get a sense of what's happening with one or more of the people in the room. But just listening, I think, helps. When we used to have those family meetings, I used to think, oh, good Lord, what did my brother do next? Or what did my sister do? I had a sister who was a rock and roll singer. And, she never got into any drugs. She was amazing. She's still one of my best friends, of course. But very much a contrition, like, no, you cannot sing at the Burnsville Bowl Lounge. She'd be like, I'm going to sing at the Burnsville Bowl Lounge. It was just like, no matter what it was, then we'd have to have a family meeting. And then I would say, well, you're saying the same thing Dad's saying. And let's try to figure it out, and kind of come up with something. So I think, there was a lot of love in our family. Not always a ton of money when growing up, but a lot of love. And then the money just grew as my father became an entrepreneur. And so I don't know. I learned a lot from him. And in fact, tell me when you want me to tell you the end of the story for my opening story, because I did have something from my dad that he taught me there. But overall, I think that's about it.
Well, then let's go ahead and tell us the ending, because then I'm just gonna, we're gonna like tie it up with the bow and then do some work. So yes, we've been hanging on our edge of our seats. Tell us how it ended.
Well, I will tell you that, I was supposed to meet with the vice president of operations for this global consulting company, and they didn't normally talk to seminar leaders or even senior training and development consultants, like me, because we were contractors. And so I waited over 3 months to talk to him about this issue regarding pay. And I was so nervous about it. I almost backed out several times because I had really great relationship with the account executives. I didn't want to be considered a problem. All the cost of negotiation that I was telling you about earlier. But really, I most importantly didn't want to fail at this. I didn't, and I believe that confidence is, has really nothing to do with high standards. It has to do with failure anxiety. And you talk about that confidence, whatever, the confidence competence loop, that has a lot to do with it. So I thought, well, I have to ask him about this, and I'm going to get better about talking about my salary if I meet with them. But I almost backed out several times. And the reason I didn't is because I went to my father and he said, listen, you got to go in there. You bring in those attitude questionnaires that say people love you in these training programs. The most important thing you can bring to a negotiation is the value that you bring to the organization. I mean, show the value, and also spend some time with him, learn a little bit about him beforehand. So all that relational piece, I knew a lot about this gentleman before we met. He was Italian. When we got in there, it totally took a dog leg to the right. I thought it was going to be all formal and everything. And he was like, let's talk. It's so great to meet you. I've heard you've done great. I want to give you a raise. He just totally started that way. And I said, well, I appreciate that. Yeah. And He appreciated the work on the Sony project. The Sony project went great. We were sort of the talk of the town. The French entourage was like, this was awesome. We actually understood it. And anyway, I said, well, while I appreciate that, I would like to talk to you about helping others in our region understand how they can get their per diem increases. And he said, oh, okay. He goes, well, what do you suggest? And good thing I had something prepared, right? So I had this suggestion, like, what if we do this? And I work with, some of the other regional managers and to come up with a program where people could, attend a program and then get trained, get assessed, and then train the trainer, get assessed. And we went through a level, and then they had like 40 educational programs. And the more programs you got certified in, if you will, then the higher your per diem. And it was a set per diem. And he said, that's great. Go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and implement that, work with our regional manager. And I was just like, taken back. And it didn't have to be from me. It was actually created with everyone. But I think without the impetus of someone just raising their hand and saying, hey, this would offer a lot more clarity to everyone when it comes to per diem.
And incentive.
Yeah, an incentive to really continue to deliver on the promise and so forth. And so anyway, that's how it ended. And it turned out to be really great. And it was a true negotiation, even working with our regional managers to make it happen. So yeah, I think it's good. And I think if you have your purpose is beyond just you, women are more likely to negotiate when that's the case too. And like if you're wanting to get an MBA program paid for from your company and you say, hey, can you pay for my MBA? That's probably going to be like what I call a flat balloon, not go very far. But if you say, hey, if I get the MBA, I'm going to be able to really make this new division sing, or, we're all going to be able to work together. I can use these skills to help us move forward on our quarterly initiatives or whatever else. So that we piece is a good strategy.
Right, because again, how will they benefit? I mean, it's not exact, but again, it's not that, like, I don't want to make it sound like that horrible, like what's in it for them, but we do have to let them know in negotiation, again, how will they benefit from it? What will be, and it is what's in it for them, but not that, like, doggy dog.
And the thing is, what we talk about, understanding like variables like price and conditions and terms and conditions and deliverables and so forth. You kind of have to understand the business issues of the company to understand which of these variables you can pull in to create the alternatives that makes good sense to people. And I talk about in our programs, alternatives like trade-offs, where there is that comparable value. And that's usually what you're shooting for, right? But sometimes some people just split the difference right away. And that's another alternative that's pretty self-explanatory. And then there are things that you can do that don't cost you a lot of money, but have great value for someone else. And so those enhancements can be incorporated with some options or alternatives for the deal as well.
So, Corine, I'm just going to throw in another question. What are the top non-negotiables that you recommend every person consider before they even, think about negotiating?
Well, I would say a non-negotiable is going to vary based on the deal, right? I definitely feel like you need to get things in writing, and that would be a non-negotiable for everyone. And also, I really encourage you not to negotiate your dream, whatever it is. You might be moving towards something and you think this is how it's going to go. This is blue skies after this. And you hit a roadblock and you realize, guess what? That person is not who I want to do business with. And this is how I thought it was going to move forward. And I just don't want people to get discouraged and stop before they realize that there are other options out there, and they don't have to give up their, their entrepreneurial dream or their next or a key stakeholder relationship just because someone may not be in alignment with what they want to do. There are different ways to create the outcomes that you want and serve all parties involved. And you just have to be creative.
So, are there any final thoughts that you want to share with us today? And then we'll do a little bit of theta healing work, and then whatever you want to offer the audience,
Okay.
I'm sure they'll be like, eat it up.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of final thoughts, I don't think any kind of transformation in your life happens without making a decision first. So I think a lot of people right now don't even think about negotiation as like, oh, this is a skill I'm going to go develop, because you don't really need negotiate. You don't think you need negotiation until you need it. And then you're like, I wish I would have had that skill. And so I think it's true that few activities really create as much fear in people's minds as negotiating, and few activities can create as much lost revenue as not negotiating, and few activities can create as dramatic of an increase in profits as negotiating. So I would encourage you to learn the skill and just put it in your back pocket. Learn the skills and the attitude necessary around negotiation, because it will help you become a stronger business leader. And today, thanks for reminding me, I did want to share something with your audience. If you are interested in receiving some more information from me, you can go to negotiatewithsuccess.com/gift, and you'll receive my preparation template. And it kind of goes over some of those, the what and the why that we talked about, and also some relational aspects that you can consider as you move into a negotiation. And if you do receive the free gift at negotiatewithsuccess.com/gift, then you'll be on my email list, and you'll receive a invitation for my upcoming Negotiate with Success Masterclass next week, which is August 13th. And I would love to have you there.
So we're going to put that in the comments below so that you can find it. But
Okay.
also too, I think it's one of those things that if you look at the skill of negotiation, and if you want to refine it, learn it, understand it, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, and you're going to learn, I always say, I have a friend who says, if you want to know what you need to work on, get in a relationship. And I always say, if you want to know what you need to work on, start a business, right? And this is just one of those areas when you are in business that if you step out of your comfort level and you look at it and are prepared with it, you will be better prepared in so many other areas of your business and your life.
Yes.
And I mean, that's the thing that I want to say is that, if you're saying, oh, this isn't the right time, or I don't know if I really need this, everybody needs it. Just going to say. And she's offering a free gift to kind of give you a taste. And Corine's been doing this for so long, like as long as I've known her, and I've known her a long time, that it's one of those things like, get a feel for her, understand the knowledge that she has, which if you haven't figured that out in these, last 40 minutes, well, then I don't know what to tell you. And just say it, right? Because it's like, I think if it didn't go like this to you on several things that she said, I'd like to be nicer here, going, oh, I guess I ought to consider that, or, oh, I never thought about that, or, oh, I probably do need help with that. But just understand that if you look at that, it'll be a domino effect. It's kind of like working with me. When you work with me, it's a domino effect, because I understand how to listen. And I do have to read between the lines in what I do, but I do ask questions about it to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. And, with theta healing. So, I'm a Theta Healing master. I'm also an instructor, so I teach this technique. So with Theta Healing, what people can do is they can tell me how they think and how they feel. But what we create in our lives are what we believe, and we hold that at a cellular level. That's not what you hear in the general public. That's not the information that's out there. So when we can bypass our mind, because as you heard, like what Corine was saying, we kind of get in our heads a little bit, and we kind of talk ourselves. We talk ourselves out of negotiations, and that's what ends up happening. Is that we got to clear the mind a bit so we can approach things from that objective, detached way. Not that it's not something that we have, like that we, have feeling about, but in order to be able, again, to not project, to hear what they're saying and to understand the communication process in it. And so we make changes, like it's called theta healing because you go into a theta brainwave as a practitioner. It's like a deep prayer or meditation, whatever, wherever you're coming from on this, because they're both one and the same. And we make changes, we bypass the mind, we bypass the conscious and the subconscious, and we actually make changes on a cellular level. So it's quick, easy, it's permanent. So I also teach this, which for the first time, I don't know if you need this, Corine, but for the first time in 20 years, we're allowed to teach the 3 prerequisite classes virtually. That's been one of the outcomes of the quarantine and COVID is that, 20 years, I had to re-sign a contract, right? Because we've always been said, never, ever, ever can you. And it's like, now they're like saying, okay, well, with these 3, you can. And, if you get certified in it and I thought, okay, that's great. But also too, it's understanding like what needs to shift. And for us, sometimes we're just a little bit too close. Also, that's the same thing with what Corine provides, like in negotiation is sometimes we're a little too close to understand what we need to say, how we need to do it, and where our mindset is to begin with so that we can have success with it. And I think that that's probably why a lot of people don't approach it. So with any new client or student, what I always do is I always make sure that we change 3 basic beliefs. I want an instant healing, I deserve an instant healing, and an instant healing is possible. And whether you're watching it now, which again, I hope that you're sharing and tagging people. I just got so engrossed with what Corine was saying. It's like tag people like that you feel like that this would be helpful for, share it and tag people that you feel like, because I'm looking at Corine going, girl, you need to like edit this and put this like, because you just did such like, I get who you are. Like I knew who she was, right? But I get that you get who she is and what she offers. So I think that that's great. And it just flowed. But we've known each other a long time. So it's just like, it was like coffee talk, but we're not drinking coffee. She's drinking tea, right? Iced tea, because we need that right now. And I'm drinking cold water, not cold water, room temperature, but that's what we need here in Texas. So, I know I keep going off because there's so much that we've learned in this hour. And we're just going to keep doing it. So this is such a complimentary and respectful modality that you do have to say yes. So whether you're watching it now, whether you're watching the replay, because a lot of people watch the replay, a lot. I just want you to know, all you have to do is say yes out loud and you'll get the work. I'm getting choked up on it. So I want an instant healing. I deserve an instant healing. An instant healing is possible. We'll let Corine cue you to say yes. Just say yes out loud.
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest things that we need to get, I always say that you can get like definitions and be in that alignment with that divine definition, or that you can, remove, the trauma around it, or even our non-forgiveness. So one, we need to get that divine definition of negotiation, because I think it's kind of like sales. Like people they hear the word and they kind of go, so we need to be like in that detached, objective definition of negotiation. We also need to forgive ourselves when we've approached it. But, I'm sure you learned a bunch of things and we didn't approach it exactly in the right way. And forgive ourselves when we didn't have the outcome that we wanted with it. Because it doesn't mean that you can't change that. You can change that. If you learn how to do it, right? If you get some guidance with it, you can change that. And then also, let's change what would prevent us from approaching a negotiation. Like, so we're not avoiding it. So if you'd like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
Let's also change what prevents us from understanding how to build a relationship to negotiate. Let's also change what prevents us from understanding our value so that we can negotiate better. And let's also change what prevents us from creating a negotiation that is for the greater good of all, right? So that we all benefit from it. We all, it's a win-win, however you want to say that. It's just that I loved how Corine had said it. Let's also change that we have to change who we are. So if you're a nice individual or a respectful individual, so we have to change who we are in order to be a good negotiator, right? No, we want to be able to know how we can negotiate in that integrity, right? In that piece of who we are, what we bring. And then also what prevents us from recognizing and knowing our value and how that relates to negotiation. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
And then let's see, I'm going to look at my notes here. I was taking notes. So also, I loved that. Let's also change, let's remove the obligation to be taken advantage of, right? So we have to know that we're going to go into a negotiation and be, you know, stake in the ground, like Corine said, and know, and again, we can do it nicely. So we want to be able to do that. But also, we want to remove the obligation that we're getting ready to get ready. And last, let's change what prevents us from creating value for mutual gain, because I love that. I'm going to have to use that somewhere. I love that. So if you would like those, just say yes out loud.
Yes.
So we're going to put Corine's links in the comments below, and so you'll be able to find them. Also, just to let you know, what I always offer is a free Draw Income to You MP3, right? Because I have the Shatter Your Income Ceiling program. So it takes 1 minute, and I recommend to do it twice a day, 1 minute in the morning, first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening. Do it for 30 days. Your life will change. And it's super easy. And then also, too, if you have any questions about Theta healing, increasing your income, but also know with that MP3, if it's negotiation, you can make that your intention. Whatever, it's based to be kind of like I do it about income, but you could do it on anything. So if you want to do it, you want to do this as you're like learning from Corine and learning about negotiation, and you want to make that your focus, do that for 30 days, however it works for you. And then also, if you'd like to just have a conversation with me, ask me any questions about working with me, Theta healing. And if I can't help you, I always say, like, if you have a question and it's something like that's not in my wheelhouse, I know really cool people and very profound and very accomplished people like Chris that I just am happy to refer you to, because if I can't help you, I typically know who can. And I will tell you, she's the same way. So and that's not over giving or whatever. It's helping people and just keeping that flow, right? So that's what we do. Anything else? Thank you so much, Corine. This was like lots of little nuggets, such good, juicy things that we've learned. Is there anything else that you want to add before we end?
That is really it. I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to come on your show and serve your audience. And thank you for everything that you do. And with not only business leaders, but all folks that really want to move through limiting beliefs to create a better life for themselves. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Corine. All right, guys. So next week, I am, and I again, I'm telling you, I know some of the best people, and their names are the most difficult for me too. We're going to be talking to Lynn Harad Devergier, right? So here again, we're having some, and again, another person who's been an entrepreneur. She comes from a very spiritual background, and you're going to love our subject, and she's amazing as well. So same time, same place next week. And thank you again, and please tag, share. This was great. And people will benefit from this. So until next week, everyone, thank you.
Yeah.